The world can seem upside down at times, which has set me on a journey in search for love, truth, and ultimately personal freedom. I'm on a mission to help people find peace and healing so that each of us as individuals and ultimately the collective can be free from whatever keeps us stuck and skews our view of just how beautiful this life can be. Welcome to the Mack Show. Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to another episode of the Mack Show. I am Mack. Thank you for joining. It's been a while since I've done an episode. I've been traveling quite a bit and life has been busy, but excited to come back on this episode with, no joke, the most fascinating guest and most amazing story you're going to hear, I think, out of all the episodes I've ever done. And he only scratched the surface on his life. This is an incredibly important episode. I have Joby Weeks on the podcast. Joby, the list of what he's done, who he is vast. He was a multimillionaire by the age of 19 years old. He is from a family that was part of the American Revolution, and he's had secretaries of war in his family, secretary of commerce under different presidents. A very fascinating, passionate, and brilliant man who is really, I see, standing in the gap for all of us who are choosing to step into the sovereignty and awakening that we're all called to. This story is incredible. His passion is incredible. So I'm really honored to have you join. And Joby, thank you for coming on, and everyone enjoy this episode. Well, brothers and sisters, like I said, what a story. Excited to have Joby on. And Joby, thank you, brother. What a life you have lived. And I know what a life you will continue to live here on out. But thanks for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, bro.
So
I also got my little puppy here.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Freshly groomed and ready to rock.
Yeah, she's got a little bow tie on.
I love it. I want to get into your story because it is wild, and I think the role you're playing in the world and the importance of your courage and passion is important for everyone. But I think before we even get into this, just crypto. I'm sure you're going to get this a lot from, I know David asked you, he's like, I'm a novice in cryptocurrency. And, there's like two camps right now. There's Bitcoin, and then what my buddy says, there's just shit coins, and there's everything else. And there's so much passion around the XRP world and the army of XRP. And then my buddy is a big Bitcoin guy. You probably know him. We can talk about it outside of this, but he shows me all the bots in the campaign and what they'll do to try to pump. And anyway, I'm fascinated by this whole world. So can you just, at a high level, explain how you got into Bitcoin, and then perhaps educate the audience a little bit before we get into your story about just even cryptocurrency?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
I guess I was always fascinated in economics. My dad was a history and economics teacher. And, it's funny, I didn't really know much about my family. And a friend of mine about 2 days ago sent me a Wikipedia article on my great-great-grandfather that I didn't know about. He had a fund called the Hornblower and Weeks. And he was like a banker. They did gold mining and refining. He was a senator. He was on the Monetary Commission that created the Federal Reserve Bank.
Wow.
He started the Bank of Boston. His fund, he was the Secretary of War under Presidents Harding and Coolidge.
Wow.
And so anyways, I'm learning all this stuff, and I'm like, it's kind of in my blood because I was born I just had a fascination with silver coins and gold coins, and I had a collectible set of all the different quarters and pennies, and I don't know if you ever collected anything.
Oh yeah,
I like to collect the old money.
The old books, the little blue.
Yeah, and you put the different coins and dimes and stuff, and nickels and whatever, and the Indian heads and all that stuff. So I guess I just kind of had it in my blood. His son was Secretary of Commerce under Eisenhower. He was a business guy too, and so I guess growing up, even my dad kind of rebelled. He went to Dartmouth instead of Harvard, and then he became a ski bum and was ski patrol here in Colorado. That's how he met my mom in Steamboat
Amazing.
skiing. So he found Jesus, and he decided he didn't want to take over the family businesses, and became a Christian school teacher.
Wow.
Which you don't make very much money doing that.
Right.
And so, I grew up here in Colorado, and I didn't really understand, but I always had this fascination. So I read this book called A Creature from Jekyll Island by Ed Griffin. Great book if you haven't read it. It's kind of the second look at the Federal Reserve Bank and how it all started. And I found it fascinating. I grew up on Dick Tracy and Scooby Doo and Investor Gadget, if you remember those old shows.
Yeah.
I always liked it's elementary, Watson, whatever.
Right.
So I was always kind of like a sleuth. I like to know the backstory, if you will. If there's a conspiracy, I was always into like learning about it,
Yeah.
And so I read that book, and it was great. And I had just finished reading Atlas Shrugged. And, they talk about, the dollar sign, and it's on the cigarettes they're smoking, and they're going back, and Francisco Diaconia minting money, and Hank Reardon and John Galt and Dagny Taggart and all this. So I always love stories like that. And so I'm up climbing a mountain in Alaska called Denali, or Mount McKinley now. Trump
Mount McKinley. Yeah.
Mount McKinley. I guess he was a great president. He did tariffs. So long and the short, I'm reading this book. It was called The Liberty Dollar Solution to the Federal Reserve. And I thought, oh, this is great. I want to become a regional currency officer and help this guy. His name was Bernard von Nothaus. And he's a funny guy. I met him through like the libertarian circles. I was at a Ron Paul thing, and he spoke at it, and we became friends. And I'm like, I'll help you with the project. Awesome. And we ended up minting hundreds of millions of dollars worth of silver and gold medallions. You're not allowed to call them coins. They're medallions. Only the government can make coins, right?
Got it. Yeah. Important distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Anyways, the Constitution says lawful money is gold and silver, right? It's not this fiat paper money, but whatever. Right. So I'm helping out with the Liberty Dollar project, and we got a great barter network, and it was very smart. Silver at the time was $4 an ounce. So we get the coin or the silver for $4, cost about $2 to mint. So we'd stamp $10 on it, sell it for $8, and they'd spend it for 10. Buy it for 8, spend it for 10. So if you used our money, you get everything at a 20% discount. And the merchants loved it because they would just break it as change back into the economy. Somebody pays $20 for a gallon of gas, and they need $10 in change. Would you like $10 in paper or $10 in silver? And everyone's like, oh, I'll take the silver. So as he's breaking it as change, it's keeping the money in the community. He's getting repeat customers. Come on back, spend that silver again for another gallon of gas.
Amazing.
And he's making 20% just breaking change in the economy. So we pumped out all this silver and gold into the economy, and next thing you know, because so many people are using it, silver goes from $4 an ounce to $15 an ounce. And who's going to spend a $10 coin for a $15 coin for $10? Because the mint had the die, you change it and stamp 20. So you buy it for 15, spend it for 20, buy it for 16, spend it for 20. Well, then silver went all the way up to $49 an ounce when we were doing it. So we pumped silver from $4 to $49.
Wow.
But we just changed the die, stamp $50 on it, so you buy it for 45, spend it for 50. Well, this was starting to really catch on. We were the second most popular currency, and we had the bright idea of putting Ron Paul's face on the coin. And next thing you know, the feds come in, raid it, steal all the money. We took the first run was like 60,000 coins or something like this, and so we sold those out month one. And I was like I really liked Ron Paul. I read all of his books and stuff. And so I thought, let's get Ron Paul, instead of spending $2 million on an ad for Super Bowl or something, I'm going to rent the biggest stretch limo in the world and wrap it in an American flag and put freedom and liberty and sound money, private property, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And send it to the Super Bowl and drive around in circles, and we'll get millions of dollars of free publicity, and we don't have to spend millions of dollars, right? Amazing. So we did the Ron Paul blimp and the Ron Paul limo. I took it to 30 states and all the debates. And so I was always in the barter network, if you will, and bounce around meeting all these libertarians. And so after the feds came and stole all the Ron Paul coins, they took about $5 million worth, silver, gold, platinum, copper. It's so weird because it's like there's Martin Luther King coins, there's Obama coins, there's Gandhi coins. But the second you put Ron Paul's face on a coin, they're like, So, he wants to end the Fed and
exactly right.
and all these guys. What Doge is doing right now. It's so great to see. And anyways, so I experienced this thing. It was like a 7-year battle to get our silver back. I was like, if you don't like Ron Paul, just melt all the silver down and send it back in bars. I don't care. I'll put somebody else's face on it. Jeez.
Right.
And but then I met another guy and he was like, no, screw this. Let's make 4 more different Ron Paul coins. So we just kept on minting different ones. Did one for the campaign for liberty. You can go on eBay and see some of these coins if you want. It's on American Open Currency Standard. It's a campaign for liberty Ron Paul coins. They're kind of pretty.
Amazing.
Anyways, the coin went from like $25 to $300 the day after they raided us. So the coins they've got the numismatic value and the intrinsic value. So let's say it's $25 worth of silver. That's the intrinsic value of the coin, but the numismatic value was like $275, because it was rare and it had a story behind it. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
I just got into the economics of it. And I saw that In Time movie with Justin Timberlake, and I thought, oh, this could be an interesting way to do a barter network because time is money. And we created a time back currency. We got a 2-hour note, a 1-hour note, a half-hour note, etc. I thought it'd be funny because everybody's getting paid hours. If you get enough hours, you get days. And if you save up enough days, you get weeks. And my name is Joby Weeks. I was like, oh, how much does that car cost? A couple weeks, huh?
That's good.
So, but the problem was not everybody's time's worth the same. The chiropractor bills differently than the lawyer, than the mechanic, the massage therapist. Yeah. And so I was thinking to myself, well, we're not communists. We're not going to force everybody to say their time is worth the same for everybody. Right. Although I did find out how everybody's time is worth the same with community service. If you're a lawyer, a doctor, or a carpenter, if you've been given 100 hours in community service, then you got to do 100 hours. Doesn't matter what your profession is. So that's really the only place in the economy or society where everybody's time is worth the same. Interesting. And I've got a project I'm working on, but I'll tell you about that later. I love it. It has something to do with that. But at the time, we got all these barter networks going, and somebody came to me and said, have you heard about Bitcoin? And I was like, what? What's Bitcoin? They're like, oh, it's like, you remember the BitTorrent network, where you could download movies and music? And I was like, yeah, I heard about Napster, and they got shut down because they had these centralized servers, So the BitTorrent network was this distributed network where you could get the same movie, but pull it from like 25 different computers. So there was like no centralized area because everybody would seed it. And then he's like, yeah, this currency is the currency that runs on the BitTorrent network. It's called Bitcoin, and it's distributed. It's got this ledger. So you don't have to send money through a trusted third party like a bank or a government. Yeah. And it's immutable, stuff like that. And so I thought, oh, this is fascinating. So I learned about Bitcoin, but it was very complicated back then because there was no exchanges. Nobody knew what it was. Because we had a mint, we could design what a Bitcoin looked like. So we made the logo, stamped it on these coins, and now everybody knew what a Bitcoin was. Amazing. And that went viral. The whole world uses the logo now. Amazing. And we decided to take the private key because it's encrypted. That's why they call it a cryptocurrency. Yeah. So you need to have the key to get it. And so we would laser etch that on the back of a silver coin. And then, it's a fireproof, floodproof
lever
storage coin or a wallet. They usually tell you write down your seed phrase on a piece of paper. But what if you have a fire or a flood? That's not going to work. So I was trying to kind of get the hard money guys, the gold and silver guys, in with the crypto guys and kind of merge them all together because I came from both worlds. And back then there was some hostility against Bitcoin. Guys like Peter Schiff and stuff. If you Google Joby Weeks, Peter Schiff.
I watched I was like, man, this is a guy that got actually the cool glasses on that video.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody made a Thug Life video on it. I'm throwing the Bitcoin white paper at him. I'm like, read the thing. I used to be a gold bug too. I'm still a gold bug. I love it. In fact, I got some tokenized gold right now.
Amazing. Amazing.
So that's kind of how I heard about it. I bought you had to figure out the Tor network. And then you had to find this website called the Silk Road, which they sold everything on the Silk Road. I'm sure you guys have heard about that.
Yep.
And there was some guy that was selling Bitcoin. And it was so sketchy because you don't know who it's like eBay. So he had like 8 stars or 10 stars, kind of like if you're a power seller on eBay, you got a bunch of stars, so people trust you more.
Right.
So this guy had the highest amount of stars. So I thought, well, he might not rip me off, but I don't know who this guy is. He doesn't know who I am. He wants this thing called a green dot card. And I didn't even know what that was either. So I had to go to like Walgreens and I'm like, do you guys sell these green dot cards? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I give cash. I get this number. I go in. I send the number to the guy. 10 minutes later, I got Bitcoin.
Wow.
And at the time, it was like 85 cents. I got 250 Bitcoins for $200. I didn't want to take a risk and gamble more than 200 because I didn't know who the guy was.
Amazing. Amazing.
So this was before any of those exchanges and stuff. Wow. And then, I forgot about it. And, a couple months later, I log in and my $200 were like $50,000. I'm like, what the heck is Bitcoin? What is this?
Yeah.
I thought the balance was wrong when I looked at it. I was like, how did this work?
Amazing.
And it just started going skyrocketing. There was the early push where it broke $1,000. It went from $1 to $1,000 pretty quick. And then it came back down. And that's when I learned about mining Bitcoin when it was around $200. And the rest is history.
Amazing, brother. Amazing. 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 Wild. I mean, it's pretty cool. I love the concept of the hard money and the Bitcoin, having both worlds melded into one with your story. That's pretty cool.
Well, it was all about trying to figure out how to not have to be debt slaves to the banking cartel, right? We own our time. And we can issue this currency interest free.
Yeah.
The whole basis behind money is we're just transferring energy around. Right. And that's why IOUs don't work, because the work has not yet been done. If I came to your town and wrote up a bunch of IOUs, I'll mow your lawn. I'll mow your lawn. I put out 1,000 of these things and you trade me real value in return. You give me a candy bar or a can of Coke.
Yeah.
And I drink the Coke and then I leave and I skip town. You're stuck with this gift certificate that says I'll mow your lawn, but I'm not even in your town anymore. So nobody trusts these IOUs. They want to have the work done already and be able to transfer that energy around. That's why gold and silver was money, because it took energy and effort to create it. You got to dig it out of the ground and the rock crushers and refine it and, stamp it into a beautiful coin. And then you're trading it and you're really just trading around energy. And that's why Bitcoin is money, because it's energy. It takes electricity to make a Bitcoin. So you don't have to trust the other person.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about it, is now we can transfer value, energy across the internet. And I don't have to trust anybody. The buyer doesn't know who the seller is. The seller doesn't need to know who the buyer is. Now you can wrap the Bitcoin up and do loans against it. And you're the borrower borrowing money from somebody. They have no idea who they're lending money to. Amazing. You have no idea who you're borrowing from. But because you're interfacing with a smart contract, it works. So business is starting to speed up faster and faster and faster. I mean, the time it takes to send a wire from China, if you can even get money out of China to the United States, in the same amount of time it takes to send that wire, I could do like 10,000 Bitcoin transactions, back and forth. So it's like the velocity of money is speeding up. Right. And so what used to take 30 years to become a millionaire, you can become a millionaire in 1 year now.
Amazing. It's fascinating, the energy. I was just watched with my my older children Dumb and Dumber the other day, which doesn't hold up as funny as I used to think it was when I was a lot younger. But there's that whole scene where they spent all that money, but they gave him IOUs, and the guy goes, "Don't worry, sir, we're good for it," or something.
That IOU is so for $40,000. You want to save that one?
You want to hold on to that one? Yeah, exactly. So that they always like to tell the truth in plain sight, and that's probably one of those where they're kind of mocking that whole system of IOUs. But
there's a joke about the guy that dies, and he gives $10,000 to each of his friends, and he says, I guess he was big at the club, and they used to throw money in the air and stuff and make it rain. And he said, I want you guys, when I die, to take $10,000 and just throw it onto my casket, as I die, or it's because I'm dead. And then they bury him up, and he gets buried with his money or whatever. So the first guy throws the money up and it comes down. The next guy throws the money up, it comes down. And the third guy throws a check.
That's great.
And the other two guys are looking at him like, what? He's like, I threw a check. It's fine.
That's great. Oh, man. Most of life is unpacking the psychological operation we've grown up in. I mean, that joke there's massive truth in that joke. You just to sit with that, and we're all, I think maybe some people right now listening are like, wait, what? Yeah, exactly. Time to wake up. It's time to understand the game. And I watched as much videos. I read through, everything you sent me. So, I mean, your journey, let me ask you this. One of the questions I was curious about, did you feel a sense of destiny or purpose, or like at a young age, was there something where you felt like you align more to the heroes of the storylines, or how did you view yourself growing up to step into the role you're doing now?
Good question. When I was younger, my dad would always introduce me as his son, his philanthropist, entrepreneur son.
Hmm.
At the time, I didn't know what either of those things meant,
Hmm.
but he would, that's how I would be introduced. And so one day I would ask him, well, what is a philanthropist? And he said, oh, it's somebody that's providing goods and services to the marketplace that supports good and worthy causes, charities and nonprofits, all these types of things. And so I see that in you. And, it's interesting when you have little kids, you can mold them pretty well and get them to see. A lot of people, you want success for them more than they want success for themselves. And but with kids, you can really groom them to become psychologically unemployable, think that profits are better than wages. You start brainwashing them with all the Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy propaganda.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're like, oh, they want me to go to college, but I'm not so certain I really want to learn how to work for someone else and make someone else rich. Wait a second. I mean, obviously, if your parents are introducing you as the lawyer or the doctor, then of course you're going to go to college because you need a degree to do those types of things.
Right.
But my whole life, I was taught to don't mow the lawn, sell the job, get $20 for the lawn, go hire someone to mow it for 15, keep the $5. You don't have to do the work, outsource.
Yeah.
I always say, don't do anything yourself. You can pay someone else to do, right? So, I had that mindset from such a young age that it just came super natural to me. I think it's mainly because my parents were broke and we kind of had to do it. My dad never made more than $20,000 a year. So my mom, she would supplement the income by doing network marketing. And in network marketing, they say it's a personal development course disguised as a business. And so that's kind of what happened is we got the tape of the weeks, and listening to all these guys and kind of train your brain to think a little different.
Yeah.
Outside the box thinking, if you will. And how to leverage yourself and create passive residual income. I got into Rich Dad, Poor Dad and the cash flow quadrant, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing and Retire Young and Retire Rich. And I figured if I wanted to retire young and retire rich, I should just read the book and then do what it says. That's what I did. And it wasn't that hard. But I guess you just got to have the excitement and passion. And I grew up on the Bible, and all the heroes of the Bible have all these different and inspiring stories. And it's funny looking back at my life now, I feel like I can relate to almost all of them, especially with my current situation right now. Suing the government for $22.2 billion and 6 judges and 9 prosecutors and a bunch of agents, the SEC, the IRS, the FBI, for some lawfare that they've been doing against me for the last 5 years. And it takes courage and bravery. I felt like I was Jonah and the whale and stuck in the belly of the beast, being bounced around the prison system all around from jail to jail to jail and state to state to state.
Amazing.
I thought that's kind of like what Paul went through too. Yeah. Daniel in the lion's den. I've been betrayed by close friends and family, so that's kind of like the Judas moment.
Yeah.
David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
Now I've kind of like learned the law. So I feel like, Moses was the law bringer, right? So now I'm sitting here trying to, be Moses, I guess, let my people go.
Yeah. Or you're trying to deliver. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I got a little bit of it all in me now. I can relate.
Amazing. Do you, and let me ask you this, because I know a lot of people are watching. Can you talk about, or do you want to talk about it, or what is the difference between other cryptocurrencies? I think this is what I have Eric Rice coming on. He's going to talk a lot about, but what is the difference? Because I know that Bitcoin is decentralized, and it's a different complete system but it's wrapped a lot of the time associated with the same thing.
Sure. Good question. I guess it all comes down to the user base. I mean, back in the day, tulips were valuable. They had
Yeah.
tulip making.
Yeah.
Lots of different things have been tried. Gold and silver, because they're a piece of gold can sit at the bottom of the ocean for 500 years and still fine. Not other tulips can't do that. Paper
Right.
can't do that. So different types of money have been tried. It's like Facebook. Facebook would not be valuable if only 2 people used Facebook, but because 2 billion people use Facebook, now it's valuable, right?
Right.
Same with Bitcoin. Lots of users, more and more people that use it. The more and more businesses that accept it, the more valuable it becomes. And supply and demand. There's a limited supply, only 21 million of them. Well, there's 7 billion people. There's millions. There's like 45 million millionaires. If all the millionaires in the world wanted one Bitcoin, they couldn't have it because there's only 21 million of them.
Wow.
So, a lot of these guys are scrambling to get some. There's lots of billionaires that are taking positions now. When I got into it, it was way before BlackRock and, Goldman Sachs and these guys. Now we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve with Donald Trump. It's so exciting. Truth comes in 3 phases. It's laughed at. It's not believed. That's just magical internet money, stupid video gamers,
Yep.
And then it's violently opposed when it finally clicks. The revolutionary technology behind it, this blockchain distributed ledger and this ledger, this immutable ledger, meaning transactions can't be reversed or frozen. That's huge. And you got billions of people that don't even have bank accounts. They don't even have like identities, so they can't even get. Well, how do all those people participate in the global economy if they can't even prove they exist? Right. So now they got money, and now they can participate in any country, anywhere. You can just memorize the Bitcoin seed in your brain and walk from Canada into the United States, and you just walked across with $1 billion. You can't do that with gold or silver or cash.
Right.
So it's a nice way to do it. There's other ones like Ripple and Ethereum and Dash and Zcash and Monero and Tron and Solana. And, there's lots of them. They call them the altcoins.
Yep.
Bitcoin still has close to a $2 trillion market cap right now.
Wow.
But all these strategic reserves for all the states are coming on board, and all these countries and central banks. The IMF just came out with something the other day, and there's SDRs, they call them, and the basket of currencies that they've got. So it all just comes down to user base, and why Bitcoin is probably the most valuable and is going to stay king is because of the hashing power that's behind it. Meaning, like when Ethereum launched, what happened was there was this DAO, it's called a distributed autonomous organization, that got hacked, and $60 million got stolen. It was one of the biggest hacks ever. I lost a bunch of money on that one too.
Wow.
These hackers keep hacking me. That was horrible. But what happened was, because they didn't have a lot of hashing power, everybody that was in the Ethereum community was like, well, we could just reverse the hack by going back on the blockchain 1 minute before the hack took place and build the chain that way, as if the hack never happened. And so the rest of the people were like, yeah, let's do that. And so some of the hackers, some of the miners sided with the hacker, because the hacker would put up a bounty. Hey, if you keep mining my blocks, I'll share the bounty with you guys. And so some of them were like, I'll keep hashing away for the free Ethereum, the hacker chain. And then the other people with ethics, they were like, oh, let's go back in time and start building. So the Ethereum blockchain forked. One with the hacker, they call that Ethereum Classic, which plummeted in value, and one with the people that wanted to reverse the hack and build on a new chain.
Wow, fascinating.
Well, you can't do that with Bitcoin. There's too much hashing power. It's too distributed, and so a lot of people were concerned about, why would I want to be a part of a blockchain where transactions can be reversed or frozen?
Right.
And so some people want the extra privacy. They go with Monero or Zcash or Dash, the zero proof knowledge, they call it, where they can do transactions and trust each other, even though the transactions on the blockchain are hidden. So nobody knows where that coin's going. Whereas with Bitcoin, it's a transparent ledger. You can see, if you got someone's Bitcoin wallet address, you can see every transaction that wallet's ever done. You can follow the Bitcoin all over the world.
Right.
So different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great answer. No, thank you for sharing that. this whole the libertarian bent and just the sovereignty. I coach a lot of people on what does it mean to be sovereign emotionally, and a lot of people with trauma have a hard time even wrapping their mind around the concept of sovereignty because they have so many voices that they're fighting just within their own head, their parents, the whoever inflicted trauma into themselves. And so people don't actually know how to say yes or how to say no. And I define the word sovereignty as when you say no, it's no.
Yeah.
There's no negotiation, there's no coercion, there's no discussion. When I say no, it's no.
And when
And
you say yes, you're saying no to everything else. So you got
exactly
to kind of
right.
weigh those things.
Exactly right. And I say that our yeses actually don't mean anything unless we have the ability to say no in the first place and choose what the yes is that we are going to say, which that's good logic. What you say yes to, you're saying no to everything else. That is sound logic. So where did you, I mean, was it just your dad? I mean, I guess I'm fascinated. Part of this podcast is just having people share their story about who they are and people waking up to their own journey of wherever they are along their path. But this whole concept of sovereignty is incredibly important to me. And you were
100%.
talking about sovereignty in a big, big way. Even Lieberland, it's so interesting. I know a guy that's friends with the president and the first lady there, and I mean, it's fascinating. I don't know if we want to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. This
Dude,
Legoland is a great story.
it is.
So Vit is a buddy of mine too. When I was climbing Mount McKinley, reading that book, the Liberty Dollar one, I was also saving the Serbian national climber's life, and he was trying to solo the mountain. And I've done 5 of the 7 summits so far. Wow. And so I saved his life, and we became friends. We got stuck in a storm. He lived in my tent for a week.
Wow.
He ate up all my food. Anyways, the weather broke, and it was either go down to base camp and get more food or summit really quick. And we decided we're crazy. We went to summit. We couldn't see that far in front of our hands. It was just a whiteout. Thank God it wasn't a blizzard.
Wow.
But we made it up, and we became buddies. Made it off the mountain. Nobody summited for the next month. Everybody was stuck on the mountain. But long and the short, he called me one day and asked me to be his best man in his wedding, his coom, they call it. And I said, well, what, don't you have other friends? All these military guys, and he's like, no, I can't pick favorites, and you saved my life, so you have to be my best man.
Wow.
So I go to Belgrade, Serbia to go do this guy's wedding. It was like a 3-day wedding. It was hilarious. They were trying to drink me under the table with this stuff called rakia.
Wow.
And I learned about the history of Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a beautiful river that goes through it. It's called the Danube River. When Yugoslavia fell apart, Serbia went that way, Croatia, Kosovo, Montenegro, Macedonia, etc. And but there was this island in the middle of that river that used to be Yugoslavia, but it's not Yugoslavia anymore. And nobody had claimed it. So we went and claimed it, created Lieberland, and put up a website. And Vit became president and started making passports. And now we got Justin Sun as our prime minister. Prime Minister's son. He started the Tron blockchain. He's a funny guy.
Amazing.
And a million people signed up to become citizens, and it was great. And we thought, because U.S. citizens are blocked from participating in so many great opportunities because our government's run by a bunch of psychopaths, or was.
Yeah.
Hopefully Trump and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel can round them all up.
Yeah, and I hope
so.
Anyways,
but back then, we needed to have some sort of passport where we could KYC, know your customer, and participate, because these great opportunities is like, we allow everybody to join except for North Koreans, Iranians, and Americans. And I'm like, wait, why can't I join? You're American. We don't want you to join. Your government's crazy.
Yeah.
So now I can join as a Liberlandian. You see,
amazing.
So
amazing.
Then I had this funny conversation with my friend. We decided we were going to see how many passports we could get and represent our countries, and then go to the Olympics. And so he ended up getting a Colombian one, and nobody cross country skis in Colombia, so he ended up in the Olympics carrying the torch. That's it's a hilarious story, and he actually beat me to the Olympics. I was gonna win, but then I got kidnapped, and so that didn't work out. But I was proud of him for being able to do that. I went for one in St. Kitts and Vanuatu and Mexico and all these countries trying to see. It's like the Cool Runnings movie. Remember the Jamaican bobsledding team that they wanted to go to the Olympics?
Yeah,
so
that's great.
I see all these movies, and then we just kind of have ideas. We're like, that's a funny idea. Let's try that.
I love it, brother. What a faster story. Let's get into. You just referenced getting kidnapped. Let's get into the meat that I teased out in the opening of this. The Okay, so you're at a date with Destiny, and let's get into that story because what I mean,
Well, I was telling you how we got started in mining.
yeah.
I was, focused on all these other projects, but I ended up, one of the projects was solar. I was getting everybody to generate their own electricity and selling it back to the grid, making money. And I was invited down to Necker Island to meet Richard Branson and pitch. It was called the, not the Consumer Electronics Show, but it was, anyways, they had this pitch fest thing, and then you get invited to Necker. The XTC, the Extreme Tech Challenge.
Cool.
Anyways, I'm down in Necker, and so I'm talking about solar, and I meet these guys who are making these chips, the mining chips. When you started mining Bitcoin, you could do it with your laptop. They call them CPUs, and then GPUs are like the graphics cards where it gets faster and faster.
Yeah,
and then they start making ASIC chips, which are like 100 laptops in one, right?
Wow.
In terms of the processing power to, track the transactions and secure the blockchain. And so I meet these guys and I'm like, hey, will you guys sell me some of these machines that print money? They're like, no. And I'm like, why? And they're like, it's a machine that prints money. Why would we sell it to you? We could just keep the machine and print money ourselves. And I'm like, no, I guess you do have a point. But come on, I thought we were friends,
Yeah.
And so I just harassed him. I'm not good at taking no for an answer. I know you can say no, but I just say that just means to me not now or maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I was never good at taking no. So next week, hey, you guys want to sell me a machine that prints money? No. It took me about 6 months, and finally, I finagled my way into talking them into. Well, I bought some shares in the company so I could be a shareholder. And I'm like, hey, now that I'm part of your company, could you sell me some machines that print money? So I will sell it to you, but only you. And I'm like, great. How much are they? And they're like $1 million. And I'm like, what? I don't have $1 million.
Wow.
And but I had heard about this organization called Bit Club, which was like a network marketing Bitcoin mining opportunity. And so I was like, interesting. So I looked at that, and it was only $500 to start mining instead of $1 million. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I became a member. It had been going for about 16 months, and I started mining Bitcoin. Now I could have taken delivery of these little computers myself and mined at home, or just let them host it at their data centers, which I opted to that because the power bill was so much cheaper when you host it at a data center than trying to pay for it at home, unless you got solar. You can only run a couple machines on a solar panel.
Right.
It's not like a big data center. So I learned about it. They were having a diligence conference where you could see the data center, meet the owners, all that kind of stuff. So I fly to Iceland because I wanted to see this firsthand, make sure that they were actually mining Bitcoin and doing what they said they were doing.
Wow.
And I met them, and we were in the Blue Lagoon, and I'm talking with one of the owners, and I said, hey, I met these guys that make the chips too. Maybe you'd be interested in getting a quote. Well, we're paying $300,000 for a petahash right now. How much would they sell us a petahash for? So I was like, I don't know. I don't even know what a petahash is. So I call the guys up. I'm like, what's a petahash and how much are they? And they're like, oh, we'll sell you a petahash for 150 grand. I'm like, really? So I'm seeing an arbitrage play here. If I buy it for 150 and could sell it to them for 300,
wow,
they make a spread. Well, they were already buying it for 300, so I was undercutting, and then they'd go back and forth, and they'd negotiate themselves all the way down because they were competing with this other company called Bitmain, Chinese outfit that was also selling these ASIC chips. So, anyways, I ended up brokering like tens of millions of dollars worth of mining hardware to these guys, and I helped set up these data centers, and they were putting them all over the place, and it was really exciting. But while I was
around, what year is this? Like,
this is like 2016 or 17, something like that.
Okay, cool.
And Bitcoin did this run up to $20,000. I remember, and it was just really exciting, you know. And I ended up going to 175 countries, I had a TV crew following me around. I was speaking at all the conferences,
Wow.
talking about mining Bitcoin. And from $200 to 20,000, I don't know a nice way to say I told you so, but I told you so. Everybody's like, oh, I should have listened to you, man. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, Bitcoin was the greatest decision of my life and the worst decision of my life.
Oh, yeah. As you're
I
about
got on
to
the
share.
radar. All these hackers started hacking me and stealing all this money from me. And I was down in St. Kitts. There's this like Bitcoin neighborhood. I wanted to get a St. Kitts passport. And it's a different passport. You don't need to have like all the visas that you need for using a U.S. passport. You just travel on your St. Kitts one. Now you don't have to go get a visa. So I like to have, we have to do that competition with my buddy. So I bought a house in this neighborhood, and my wife's passport shows up, but mine's not in the mail. So I call up the lawyers down there and I'm like, hey, where's my passport? And they're like, well, how do we say it? There's an investigation going on you. And I'm thinking to myself, an investigation. I wonder what this could be about. Because I was already kind of messing with the pharmaceutical cartel and the banking cartel and the oil cartel and the big tobacco cartel. I had invested in a number of other disruptive technologies that challenged the status quo. And so they said, well, I hung up the phone. I called I had assembled my own little team of hackers to try to catch hackers because I got hacked. I wanted to get my money back. And I didn't really like what was happening with Bitcoin kind of getting a bad rap because these hackers would lock up hospitals with ransomware and all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to catch the bad guys. And all of a sudden, there's an investigation going on me. I never harmed anybody or hurt anybody or anything. So I want to know what was up. So I called my guys and they're like, yeah, guys at the Treasury, they're investigating you. I said, well, I set up a meeting. I'll fly and go meet them. I want to know what they want.
Right.
So I fly to Washington, D.C., and I have this dinner with these agents from the Treasury, and they're asking me all types of questions about BitClub. So I'm like, okay, I know what this is about. So I tell them, BitClub, here's their wallet address. They've mined 92,000 Bitcoins and 500,000 Ethereum. Here's the data centers. Here's the invoices. They are doing what they said they were doing. I just told them what it was. And so I think the investigation must be over. I fly back down to St. Kitts, and they still won't give me the passport. And I'm like, why? And they're like, you're still being investigated. I'm like, what? I call up the guys. I'm like, why are you guys still investigating me? Wow. I was not trying to hide from anybody.
Right.
And they're like, well, we have some more questions, for you. And I'm like, okay, well, I got extra Tony Robbins tickets to Date with Destiny. Why don't you meet me there? We could do Date with Destiny in the morning and go grab lunch. I can answer your questions. And voila. Well, that was a stupid move because they arrested me at Date with Destiny, where I had my date with Destiny. And
amazing.
Anyways, and it was crazy because they wouldn't take me to jail and just let me see a lawyer. They wouldn't let me talk to a judge. And I'm like, well, if you guys are really cops, I have a right to go to jail. I got a right to, and they're no. They took me to this like black CIA site or whatever, unmarked building. And they're just trying to get me to turn over my private keys.
Were you feeling, did you have any fear at this moment or?
I don't have any fear. God has everything under control. It's all just an experience. I kind of looked at it as like going to some random third world country, So I had already done a lot of traveling and it was always an adventure. And so, and everything always works out. So, they get mad at me. I'm like, well, I need to have money to hire lawyers and pay for bail and stuff. I can't just give you my money. Like, what did I do wrong anyways? They said, well, I was indicted for something. Can I see the indictment? No, they never showed me the indictment or anything. Anyways, they get mad. So for the next 11 months, they bounced me around the country from jail to jail to jail to jail and state to state to state to state. I got to experience the entire prison system, meet lots of different interesting people. Wow. All of them have crazy stories. And I finally get to New Jersey and I'm like, who did I harm? What laws did I break? Who are the victims? I mean, like, you stole $700 million. I'm like, I didn't steal anything. And they're like, well, if you Google me right now, it looks like I stole $722 million. They say that this was a big Ponzi scam. And you can see the wallet. We mined 92,000 Bitcoins. That was paid out to all these people. BitClub was paying people every single day.
Wow.
Up until the day we got kidnapped. And everything the government said, it's total fabrication, fake news.
Right.
And it's horrible. They said it was just a Ponzi. No mining is taking place. And it's like, it's all on the blockchain for the world to see. Every Satoshi, every penny is tracked. So Yes, there are victims. There's over 1 million members in BitClub in 100 different countries, and those victims were caused by illegal government intervention. Who created the victims? Not me. I didn't, and I didn't control BitClub anyways. I was a vendor for BitClub, selling them physical Bitcoin mining hardware, computer equipment. That's not a security.
Right.
If what I was doing was illegal, what Amazon and Google and Dropbox and everybody else, these data centers that host stuff, that's all illegal too. But they didn't go after them. And I think it was because they were just commanded from their higher ups that Bitcoin's a threat to the dollar.
Yep.
And they couldn't get Satoshi. So the next tier down is the miners. And who are the biggest miners in the world? Well, BitClub was the biggest. They controlled over 11% of the hashing power around the world. And I was kind of the face of BitClub because, I went and spoke at all the conferences. I was totally sold. I was totally an evangelist for the technology. But I was just a vendor. I didn't control the website or the money or anything. And but they're treating me as if I stole $700 million. And I could get it like if I actually did steal. But they denied me bail. They denied me a trial. It's been 5 years. Still have not had a trial. So that's why I'm doing this counterclaim lawsuit against them, because they've broken so many laws. They're not following the Constitution. Due process says that you get indicted, you get arrested, you get bail, then you get a trial, and after trial, if you're convicted, then you go to jail. That's called due process.
Yeah.
For those feds watching this video right now, due process. That's in the Constitution. What they do is they arrest you, they throw you in jail, they deny you bail, they deny you a trial, and then they bounce you all around. And 5 years later, you're still sitting around on house arrest. What is that?
Right. It's tyranny.
Trump came out, became president. It's like literally the day he got elected. I'm like, all right, I'm suing these guys. I was scared because, not really scared, but a little nervous because you saw what Biden and his whole team did to the president of the United States.
Yeah, exactly.
Who am I?
Right.
Versus, they tried to give him like 100 years in jail. And Steve Bannon and Roger Stone and Cash and all the heroes.
Yep.
Of this MAGA movement, they were all targeted.
Yep.
A lot of them went to jail.
Yep.
So, it's just called lawfare, and that's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm sick of it. So I'm still stuck on house arrest here at my parents' house, and that's why I decided I'm going to start doing these podcasts. So thank you for letting me share my story.
Man, my pleasure, and thank you for sharing. Do you think it was a FISA court that did that indictment because you had so much foreign travel? Were they able to use that, and that's why they could keep it sealed or not show?
Well, it was a sealed indictment, but I think they just do that to not alert anybody, even though I was alerted by 2 different agencies. I knew that there was an investigation going on. They're like, how did you find out? I'm like, because I have friends everywhere. I went to 175 countries. I have friends everywhere. And so they were like, well, it's surprising that you know about this and you haven't tried to flee. But then they say I'm a flight risk. I personally went to them. I personally called them and invited them to Tony Robbins to meet with me. And then they tell the judge, oh, this guy's a flight risk. They just everything they said was lies. And my stupid lawyers made me don't make any statements to the press. I went 5 years without speaking a word. And these guys stole $3 million from me and never did anything. Couldn't even get me bail. Couldn't even get me a trial. So and there's 5 of us that are stuck in this conspiracy. Joe's sitting on house arrest in California. There's this guy, Matt. He's stuck on house arrest. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Sit on house arrest for the next 10 years?
Right.
So that's why I'm deciding I'm just pushing this now. I've dropped February 11th was when I filed my first motion. I had to fire my lawyers because they wouldn't do anything for me. So I filed this motion to dismiss, and I dropped the bomb on all these, prosecutors and everybody. A temporary restraining order, this counterclaim. I'm getting them for RICO, for anti-Sherman, or the Tucker's Act, the anti-Sherman trust, or whatever. All these acts for human trafficking and kidnapping and all these things that they're doing to people. Good. It's horrible. You're supposed to give people a trial before you throw them in jail, and that's why the government has a 97% success rate on convictions, is because they kidnap you and throw you in jail, and you sit around for 2 years, and then they're like, "Listen, we got to give you a trial eventually,
right?
So we'll give you a trial next week, but if you fight us, you're looking at 20 years. But if you just take this deal, we'll let you go tomorrow." And everybody, they're already been sitting in jail for 2 years and like, wait, I can go home tomorrow to my family. I got a little daughter that's learning to walk and talk without me. Sure, I'll say 2 + 2 is 5 if you let me go home tomorrow. Great, 2 + 2 is 5.
That's what I wanted to ask.
That's how they get their convictions.
Okay,
total cheaters.
Because if you Google your name, and that's what I want to make sure I ask you about this, because if anyone's watching there, everyone will watch and or listen and Google you, Gemini, Google's AI, Gen AI tool that also remember made the founding fathers of the U.S. Uh, black people and
This
Nazis,
AI
black,
is totally off too. I've busted these things. The only one you can trust is Grok right now.
yeah,
I
Grok's,
have gotten in battles with ChatGPT. I mean, it's bullshit.
yes, exactly.
And the AIs are learning from the other AIs, which learn from the other AIs, and nobody's learning from what's real.
When I worked at
That's what's scary
Microsoft and
about it.
I was working on the Azure team or the department of I was like, so how many cloud services are there? And they name a few, AWS and Azure and a few others. And I was like, well, they have to communicate to each other, don't they? I mean, isn't there ultimately just one? And they're like, yes, they
Like, we can't tell
communicate.
them that
Yeah, we
answer.
can't tell you, but they
Try to
didn't tell
type
me.
in the Rothschild family, and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't
yeah. They
have any
didn't
history of the
spell
Rothschild
out.
family at all. They're
Yeah,
like, the
exactly.
Rothschild family, never heard of them. Never,
Right,
never heard about
right.
them.
Right. They gave me these are not the droids you're looking for. I was like, wait a minute, okay. But speak to that 2 + 2 is 5, because let's just talk about it. Gen AI or Gemini, Google's Gen AI, it says that you pleaded guilty to the 722 million. So is that what you're saying? They give you the option for you can go home.
No, they wanted me to plead guilty to saying that computers are securities, which I did. And then when I got out of jail and I got my bail and I'm back with my family, I mean, dude, it was during COVID. It was a pretty sketchy time.
Sure, sure.
Um, and so once I was home, then I reversed my plea.
Yeah, you played the game and yeah,
Yeah, so now
the
I'm
art of
home.
war. It's
I
the art of war.
rescissioned the autograph, so,
Yeah,
it wasn't a real contract anyways, because there's 8 elements of a contract and the government put up 0. They want me to, and then they want to still call it a contract. I'm
right.
like, no, 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 no. And there's plenty of precedent and law that states that you can make a plea deal and then reverse your plea deal as long as it's done before sentencing. So that's what I did. They've never sentenced me, and my other co-defendant Matt has not even had a trial. He didn't have to take a plea deal to get bail, although they kept him in jail for over a year. But then they were like, okay, we got to finally give this guy bail. So
Amazing, man.
basically, yeah. So it's like either give me a trial or case dismissed.
Right.
And that's where I'm at right now, sitting here with his ankle bracelet on still. And it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolute lawfare. It's totally a frivolous case that the government has brought against us. Don't you think that if we actually harm people and we're guilty of stealing 722 million, number one, we'd probably be dead. Number two,
yes,
people kill people for $1,000.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
And here I am. Everybody knows where I live. It's all over the internet. It's like, why am I not dead?
Right.
Number two, they would convict you.
Yeah.
I mean, that SBF guy, he got arrested, indicted, arrested. He got tried and he got convicted and he's in jail. I've been sitting here for 5 years. It takes longer. I've been sitting here longer than it takes you to go through high school. You know how many tests you had to take in high school?
Right. Right.
Like all the dances and homecoming football games, summer breaks, all this. These guys can't put together a trial. They can't put together a case in 5 years. It's a total scam.
And why?
Now I'm out. I'm speaking my mind.
I'm glad you are. I'm glad you are. And speak to this. Why do you think that is, other than they just want to break people down? Do you think that, because there's a whole theory about, I don't want to get into so much of the conspiracy stuff, but
don't talk about the devil worshiping, child trafficking, pedophiles.
No, I mean, that's a given. Everyone that watches this show already knows about all that. But there seems like to be this split of consciousness. There's, whether you call it the harvest, it depends on your worldview, right? If you're Christian worldview or whatever worldview that people want to come at. But it seems like these agents of the matrix can only operate in a certain binary sense. And their code is being either broken, halted, contained. It's real life, what's happening to you. And also, you're right. You're not convicted. You are free. Trump is coming in. He strips the 51. And by the way, everyone, I was talking to some people today. 51 is 17 times 3, and 3 is the highest value of a curse that they can place on something, and 17 is Q, and area 51. They know all these numbers. They play this game. This is a huge we are in the midst of a silent war. You happen to be on the front line and now a vocal, you're a general, whatever role you're playing a significant role. Um, but I guess why do you, what's happening? I guess let me ask
They
you,
just
I know
wanted to
you're
put me in
in it, but
timeout.
what's
I
happening?
had too many people following me. They call it getting canceled or whatever. It was like, this guy, we have to contain this guy.
That's
He's
it.
like, too, like we're not certain, because I always lived my life above reproach, so they couldn't really blackmail me on anything.
Mm,
I was married for close to 15 years. Unfortunately, my wife and I split up, and
mm,
that's a sad situation.
sure.
But
Sure.
we had 10 great years.
Yeah.
But, when
Hey, hey, you know what?
what the government did was horrible. My poor wife got stage 4 cancer. That was a whole ordeal trying to get her well when I can't go anywhere or do anything or have a bank account or use crypto or have friends over or go to church or,
Right.
I'm on house incarceration. I can't even walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. How am I supposed to support my family?
Right.
And, the stress she was under, it's a horror. They're very evil people.
Right.
That do these things, but they don't have hearts or souls, and so they're able to do it.
I think that's the question. That is the case, right? I mean, let me
They're warehousing human beings. They make tons and tons of money. So what happens is they have these bonds. So the bail bonds and the appearance bonds and the penal bonds and they're literally bonding these court cases and trading the bonds and making all this money. It's crazy. You can read the documents on jobyweeks.com if you'd like to read about how much money they're making on all of these court cases and warehousing human beings. These courts are corporations. I mean, the whole thing is like an evil Babylonian matrix that's been
we live in the bondage. We are in bondage. And that's why sovereignty.
You don't have to be. Sovereignty is important. Like we've got the de jure constitutional republic, United States of America. Yep. And then we got this imposter de facto corporate state, United States Inc.
Yep.
Got American citizens. They're 8 USC 1101 A21 American nationals. Mm-hmm. And then you got 8 USC 1401 U.S. citizens, which are these officers. There's, the flag over here in God's kingdom, the republic, the red, white, and blue. Yep. Over here, it's the red, white, and blue with gold fringes.
Gold fringe, yep.
Right? You got the state of Colorado. You got the Republic of Colorado. You got the state of Texas. You got the Republic of Texas. Everything is, it's totally mirrored. It's like Satan has come and like cloned the Constitution for the United States, Constitution of the United States. Yeah. There's the 13th Amendment that bans slavery, and then there's the 13th Amendment that bans titles of nobility. And nobody realizes that this whole entire thing, even though the Supreme Court says in Hooven Allison versus Evett, that there's 3 different United States. Now, when you're reading the 250,000 pages of code, the law, the statutes at large, it'd take you 10 hours a day for 10 years to read it all. Nobody knows the law. And it mentions the United States thousands of times. Don't you think it'd be smart to know which United States they're talking about? Right? The 28 USC, it talks about United States being a corporation, Wow. So it's like you want to be sovereign and not act as a flesh, blood human being with rights. That's right. Americans have rights, but U.S. citizens don't. U.S. citizens have to get licenses to do anything. Licenses to hunt and fish and cut hair and practice law and medicine and license to get married. Right. It's not illegal to get married. Why would you need a license? Licenses are supposed to give you permission to do something which would otherwise be illegal. It's not illegal to get married. So what's wrong with you? Why would you get a marriage license? It's because nobody's taught any of this stuff. Yeah. A lot of history has been taken out. That's why I feel so blessed to be my father's son, because he was a history teacher. He told me that George Washington was the 11th president of the United States. Yeah, I said, well, why does all the school system say he was the first? He's like, well, from 1776 to 1787, under the Articles of Confederation, we had 10 presidents. We had John Hanson, Thomas Mifflin, Thomas McKean, Elias Bonet, Arthur Sinclair. George Washington was the 11th president of the United States. First under the Constitution, 1787, the Constitution was ratified. In 1789, he became the 11th president of the United States. But nobody knows that. Because everybody's been like compartmentalized. Even these lawyers are compartmentalized. There's the securities lawyers, there's the criminal lawyers, there's the military lawyers, the traffic lawyers, the family court lawyers. None of them know the law. They just know their like specialties, just like the doctors don't know how to keep you healthy. That's right. You got your endocrinologist, the immunologist, the cardiologist, right? They don't, it's just this medical money go around. None of them know how to cure any diseases. It's horrible. Right. People don't need medication, they need education. And so that's kind of where I started out, fighting the pharmaceutical cartel. And you have to cure too much cancer. They come after you for that too.
Brother, first of all, thanks for your curiosity and following through with it. And thanks for the joy that you share. I'm not saying we're ending now. I just want to tell you, I don't know if anyone's thanked you. Maybe they have, but I'm telling you, thank you. Thanks for
Well, thank you. And I appreciate your support.
diligent and reading and being articulate and um, what as
We're
you
going to wake
look
a lot of people up. This is the Great
absolutely
Awakening.
it
I'm
is
telling you what,
truly it's the Great
we'll get
Awakening.
this audio out. We'll get lots of movies out. We're Angel Studios is coming out with great stuff. We're flipping it back.
Yeah,
People are starting to realize the wool that's been pulled over their eyes.
that's right.
And the Me Too movement went huge. Why not have the opt out movement?
That's
Hashtag
right.
opt out.
Yes. Yes.
Leave Babylon. Exit the
Yes.
matrix.
Yes.
You're there voluntarily. Slavery is illegal. You have to literally apply to be a slave. You literally have to sign up for it. And they show you these secret society occult guys with the numbers and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like part of their code is they have to like tell you what they're doing to you.
Right.
And then because you can't just like enslave people, but you can trick them into signing up to be slaves. That's why the Fabian Society was so interested in me, because Cecil Rhodes left all of his money to the Fabian socialists, right?
Yep.
Their stained glass mascot is a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing.
Right.
That's their mascot.
Right.
And they got their sister organization, the Royal Institute for International Affairs and the Council on Foreign Relations, and these guys are taking the power centers of society and trying to conquer the world, and the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group and all these guys.
Right.
But there's not very many of them. There's like 4,000 members. There's like 300 million of us.
Right.
We surround them.
Right.
We just got to take our power back and start just opt out. They created this great little sandbox to play in. It's kind of like eBay. If you play in eBay's sandbox and you sell stuff and buy stuff, you got to pay eBay fees. You got to use PayPal.
Yeah.
But no one says you can't go sell stuff at your own yard sale, a garage sale in your driveway.
Right.
You don't have to pay eBay fees if you do driveway yard sales.
Right.
So opt out, leave eBay, stop using their platforms, leave YouTube, go to Rumble, all these things.
Yeah.
So it's like we vote with our wallet, stop doing business with all these douchebag companies, and support people like me and you and everybody else that is fighting these guys. And I mean, it's kind of scary, but it's exciting.
It is, bro.
Look at my life. It's kind of Forrest Gump meets Indiana Jones meets a little Shawshank Redemption, maybe some Wolf of Wall Street in there, So, I can always use as many prayers as I can because I this is what got me in trouble in the first place, is I was just talking the truth too much and calling Social Security a big Ponzi scam and stuff. But now, thank God, Elon Musk is backing me up. I'm like, I'm not saying it. Elon said it.
Amazing.
That's why journalists, have such a better time, because they're just repeating what somebody else told them. This is the other guy that took the risk, not the journalist.
Yeah, that's right.
Although they do wax some journalists, but
that's right.
It's it's so nice to see what Trump is doing and Elon and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, and oh man, it's such an exciting time to be alive.
The Avengers have assembled, and
somebody. I prayed before this conversation started. I'm really hoping someone hears this and hits the right ears, and they can help. Whether it's at the DOJ, somebody listening to this that's a donor to some congressman, and maybe somebody can help put this frivolous case behind. I'd like to get out. I'd like to hire 10,000 people. I'd like to build the biggest data centers in the world again. I've got some great projects that I'm working on that I can't even tell anybody about because I don't want the government to come blow them up,
Yeah.
So, but we can talk offline about all that. But I hope this story has a ripple effect across the internet.
Yeah.
And if you're watching it right now, please share it with your friends. Post it on your social medias, and I could use some help. Go to jobyweeks.com. I'd like to make all the victims that the government caused whole. So that's why I'm doing this lawsuit and trying to get this money returned to the Big Club members. They took hundreds of millions of dollars worth of people's property, not just mine, all of our mining hardware and equipment. What they did is totally unethical, totally illegal, totally wrong morally. Everything is just wrong about it. And the property needs to be returned to its rightful owners. And these victims that the government created need to be restored. You can't be pointing your finger at me. I didn't do any of it. Right. So, I look forward to my day in court if I get one. I think they're just going to case dismiss it and try to sweep this all under the rug. April 8th is when the government has to reply back to my motions. The judge has actually is actually compelling them to reply. And if you go on my website and read the motions I dropped, you don't want to be the government. Wow. And then May 8th, there's a hearing. So we'll see what happens, but it's happening now.
Yeah.
And I can
Yeah.
use all the prayers you guys want to send my way.
Absolutely. Well, brother, if you don't mind, let me pray with you as we close this out.
Thank you.
Father God, I thank you for this man, this light, this man that bears the fruit of the Spirit, Lord. I just thank you. I just pray a covering inside, outside his mind, his body, soul, spirit, and heart, every property in every realm that he touches and owns. Lord, everything that he sets aside on, Lord, I pray a sovereign covering over. I ask for your rain down holy fire to burn off anything on us, in us, around us, anything ungodly, impure, unholy from any entity, any dimension, and any power that claims to usurp your power, God. I just pray for blessing and courage, not only for Joby as he continues to walk through the coming months, but every person listening, every person. May courage rise. May power of your truth and Holy Spirit pour through us. And Father, may we be set free, made free for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you, brother.
Brother, thank you for coming on. And everyone, go follow this brother, support him, pray for him, and let's continue this journey because the Great Awakening is here. Thanks, Joby.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks, brother. Well, Joby, thank you again for coming on. Everyone, go to his website, jobyweeks.com. You can find his information. You can just Google his name and you'll see a lot. He has a documentary coming out. There's a whole bunch of content coming out. He's just starting the podcast circuit, and I'm honored to have him on as a guest. And this is the time. Whatever you're going through right now, I mean, the energies have been so dense, so heavy. It's almost unrecognizable. Sometimes I'm like, what my identity of who I thought I was, and the process of healing and stepping into the fullness of who I am and where we're all going, and the energies in this world, and just everything seems so inside out, upside down. And through it all, we're finding the grace of nature's law, the cadence of God's love, and just surrender to that, brother and sister. Just surrender to that. Everything is working out. Everything is going to be okay. And you have people like Joby that are being on the front lines, and it's incredibly humbling, but also inspiring to watch. So let's pray for him and support him. I hope you are doing well. I love you. I am Lucas Mack. This is the Lucas Mack Show, and I will talk to you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. If you're struggling to break free and need support, go to my website at lucasmack.com. There you'll find resources like videos and ebooks, and also information on how to work with me for coaching. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.